Welcome back to a very special Ty and That Guy. I'm Wes Chatham. This is my good pal, sometimes lover, Ty Franck. And this is a great friend of the show, Dan Nowak. I call him Dan Nowak. How are you, Dan?
Great. You're not talking about me being sometime lover?
No, that's full-time.
Don't want to bring that up.
Full-time lover. What are we talking about today? On this very special Ty and That Guy.
Yeah, so this is a very special Ty and That Guy. We're not going to talk about anything that anyone else wants to hear about. This one's just for us, baby. It's the three of us talking about one of the greatest movies ever made, one of the few perfect movies, like that tiny list of perfect movies. This is on it. Tremors, with the amazing Kevin Bacon, the amazing Fred Ward, and just killing it for 90 minutes.
You broke into the wrong goddamn basement, didn't you? You know, I can tell you if I automatically
it's their rec room, but
broke into the wrong rec room.
Oh, the wrong rec room. You know how I can tell if I automatically like somebody is if you say a quote from Tremors and they know where it's from, or they say a quote from Tremors, we're automatically friends. We're automatically in there and in that world.
I also like they have like an elephant gun in one of those break glass in case of emergency things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes you just need an elephant gun. That's where it is.
I'm also curious about there's like three or four other pistols in there with the elephent gun. And I'm like, which are those? Because they're obviously very important to be behind.
They're elephant pistols.
Yeah.
When did you first see the movie, Dan? When did it first come across?
I saw it when I was 9 or 10 when it first came out. Depending on when it came out, I believe it came out at the beginning of 1990, so I was probably like 9. I remember, I saw it in the theater with my brother and my dad, and I remember before it, there was a trailer for Total Recall, which was coming out that summer. Which, because I was 10 years old, that's totally appropriate to take me to see that, which we also went and saw later that summer in the same theater. But no, I remember, I totally remember it was the theater in my hometown, small, had 3 screens. Went and saw Tremors, and I just love the movie. I can't say enough good things about it. To me, the chemistry between Fred Ward and Kevin Bacon is probably my favorite, chemistry between two people in any kind of movie. They just make this movie sing. Without them, I don't think I'd hold it in high regard. Just they are the bickering couple that is just so everything they say is so damn funny. I just love when after the graboid grabs the truck and they go back to Walter's place and they discover oh man, the first thing Kevin Bacon says is, next time I told you I wasn't hung up. Because they were fighting earlier about you're hung up, I tell you. That's the first thing he just wants to get off his chest.
I would say they are as good as Gibson and Glover in Lethal Weapon.
Oh,
I would say
I like
they're
him
that
better.
level.
I like him better personally, but yeah.
They remind me of Gus and Tom Lee Jones and Robert Duvall and Lonesome Dove. Their chemistry, and they're kind of quacking at each other back and forth, and this is kind of like a new Western. When did you first see the movie, Ty?
I think I saw it at the theater too. So I had religious wacko parents, and one of the things that religious wacko parents do is they try to control what media that you consume. So I was doing a lot of stuff behind, I was listening to heavy metal and going to whatever movie I wanted.
Masturbating. Did you feel guilty about it?
Don't lie, we all did.
Did you feel guilty about it because you had religious wacko parents?
No.
No,
I never did.
Okay, good.
But then there was the movies that you were allowed to watch when the parents were around, and for whatever reason, Tremors was a movie that they didn't seem to have any objection to. If you were in the video store and there was nothing else that was appealing, you could grab Tremors and you were not going to get any pushback from the parents. So I probably saw it over the course of a summer. I probably saw it half a dozen times.
The first time I saw it, I talk about one of my really good buddies, one of my best friends, named Ashley Hancock, and I talked about him a few times on the podcast because his dad was involved somehow with video stores, and so he had his whole downstairs basement was just rows and rows of movies, but they were the movies that weren't doing well, right? So they weren't there was a lot of crazy abstract movies that were in there, but they did have movies that were hits like Tremors. And he always quoted Tremors, and he always talked about it. And then he's like, have you seen Tremors yet? And I'm like, nah. And one night I was over his house, and we would watch like shelves of movies over his house. And one night I was over his house and we watched Tremors. And it was, like when you're with your buddy and, you're in that maybe we were smoking a little weed, but you're in that place of like just laughing and in a good mood, and the movie just hits just right. And then that's what happened with Tremors. When I saw it, I just fucking loved it. I thought and going back now and watching it, I realized how well designed it is, how well developed. I mean, it's a really well-made movie. And at the heart of it, you're right, is the chemistry between Fred Ward and Kevin Bacon.
And even just like when I was rewatching it, like on Christmas, when I texted you guys like at midnight, because we weren't up drinking or anything. But it just randomly was on TV. But if you watch the opening scene of it, they set up so much. I mean, they basically set up the ending.
Yeah.
Like they have the whole run. They have the whole runner going through of them, like with the cigarettes. Who has the lighter? Who has this? They have the whole thing with Stampede, which is what he says right at the end. And they do the whole paper, rock, scissors thing, which they set up and they do throughout the whole movie. And there's so many things when you first meet the characters, the different characters, you know exactly who they are. Like it sets up everything going forward.
And he's pissing off the cliff that is eventually where the ending is. The opening image is going to be the ending image.
Yeah, no, and like Ty said, to me, it's just such a like perfect written script. I mean, yeah, it's a B movie, but that doesn't mean it can't be fun as hell and awesome, which is what it is. And and
it avoids the most annoying B movie trope, which is the plot is driven by everybody being stupid. Because the Fred Ward character and Kevin Bacon character, the movie treats them as like these goofy, good old boys who, like live out in the middle of nowhere in like Nevada or whatever. But they keep being smart. They keep making smart decisions. They keep like every time the script could take them a stupid direction, it doesn't. And so it never annoys me. Like, and they keep figuring stuff out. Like one of my favorite moments early on is when they find the old prospector dude dead up on the electrical tower. Yeah. And they're trying to figure out how he got up there and why he's dead. And Kevin Bacon says, well, maybe something trapped him up there. And Fred Ward goes, something that's not afraid of a Winchester rifle?
Yeah.
And it's like he's observant. He's thinking about the situation. He's a smart guy. Even though they're played as goofy, shit kickers, they're still smart guys, and they figure out what's going on. I love that. I love that they avoid the stupid plot trope.
One thing that struck me when I first started watching it was, when I was younger, was the good nature of it. And sometimes these monster movies, they can be mean. They can be mean to the people in town. They can be, and that has its place, and something like that. But this movie respects everybody in there, and everybody has a story. Even old dead old man Dean or whatever up in the tower, he's like, they kind of talk a little. Even the construction workers, they have a little bit that get killed. They even have a little bit of going back and forth and things like that. And that was one of the things, is like this weird motley crew of people. The dad from Family Ties, like all these different Fred Ward.
And Reba McEntire. It was really interesting. Well, and nobody's there to be the character that everybody makes fun of, right? Like,
the only person you kind of get with that is Melvin, and it's hilarious though, because like it actually kind of pays off later with him just scaring everybody, and then they go out and he's terrified out of his mind.
Yeah, but like when you meet the survivalists, and the thing is, the town that they live in is the town that only weirdos live in, right? Mm-hmm. And it's this out in the middle of nowhere in Nevada town that only weirdos are going to live in. There's like 12 people that live there.
14.
And you meet the survivalists. Yeah, 14. You meet the survivalists out there. Yeah. And they're the kind of character that another movie would make fun of. Mm-hmm. Like, they're the weirdos, they're the survivalists, we're going to make fun of them. But it doesn't. And they actually wind up being like two of the best characters. They wind up being the characters that help everybody survive. And their weirdo survivalist obsession pays off because they have a fucking elephant gun in their rec room.
And to your point, like right after, there's actually a line in the movie where it's like, can't make fun of Bert's lifestyle anymore. After they killed one of the Crab Boys. Yeah.
And everybody, they genuinely like each other and look out for each other. And the whole town works together, and everybody has solutions. It's not like there's one hero. Everybody has an idea and they contribute. Like, the guy that said, run the tractor, the grass
Miguel,
cutting.
Yeah.
Like, oh, and by the way, I didn't see a lot of grass out there, but it's forgivable. Have the tractor go out and do the thing. But everybody was contributing to how it was, it was definitely this game of like how to outsmart these worms, and everybody, they were working together, which is, usually there would be the guy that everybody hates. and there's the the people that you want to see die and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but
there's no like evil businessman character.
Yeah.
That like you're waiting for him to get killed by the graboids. Like the guy who owns the shop keeps trying to make money off the graboids, but he's still lovable. Right? We still like him. Like when he's selling pictures of the graboids, we still think he's cool.
Forget the damn name,
so there's
Walter.
not like
what was the picture of the thing? Like take a picture of the deadly snake or whatever. Like and they had the little girls they had next to the snake doing the thing.
Yeah. He's like making everybody take turns.
The scene with the like early on, I think it was like the second or third death was the old married couple that were out in the desert and it swallowed the station wagon, going through.
Yeah.
What I thought was interesting is that's usually the first scene of these type of movies where you have that scene where because they're not really connected in any other way except that. So that's your first scene to introduce like, oh, there's this monster out and what's happening. But it was in a ways, but you still got to know who they were. They had a history. They had a conversation about where they were going and their trip that they were on. You got to know them, and then when this thing starts happening and starts murdering, that's usually at the front of the movie. But it was kind of deeper into the movie from that point.
I remember watching that scene when I was a kid, and that scene terrified me. Just like the whole car getting sucked under there. But like to Ty's point though, like the way they figure it out to me was like. One of the like clever, smart things about the movie is where they stop there on their way to Bixby and like they're like, oh man, we just missed them. And Fred Ward's like, the car's gone. Like they're obviously not here. And then Kevin Bacon's like, where's the goddamn golden oldie coming from? Because he saw earlier like the woman actually kicked their radio. And so they're just like standing there like, where's this music coming from? And like the reveal with the car and the headlights. I'm like,
and the headlights pointing up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched the making of it, which is interesting, and it's another one of those things where things aren't working right because they couldn't figure out how to bury the state. Like originally, the thing was going to come up, grab the station wagon, and pull it underground, and they couldn't make that work. And so what they did is they went back and had the headlights shine up into the sky, and then the lights went out, and that's how they created that. And it's really spooky when you watch that how it happens because now you can't see the monster, and they yank the thing in, and it's just. It goes off the station wagon. You see the lights go up, and then it goes out.
Oh, that's a clever way of doing it. Yeah,
they keep finding clever ways. So I keep going back to this, but the standard B movie idiot plot. They get in a situation where they seem safe, and then the idiot version of the movie, somebody does something really stupid and puts them on danger again. But the fun thing about Tremors is that keeps happening, but it's generally not because of somebody being stupid. Like when they finally get in the store and they're safe for a minute, and the bad compressor on the cooler kicks in, which they had set up before that.
They set up in the first scene when you meet Walter. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. They're all kind of safe, and there's that moment, and nobody does anything dumb. It's just the cooler comes on and that bad compressor starts rattling. And that's what sets off the next attack. I mean, that's very clever. And if you're a screenwriter, that's a much more satisfying and interesting way to increase the danger rather than, hey, we're all safe. Now someone's an idiot and that puts us all in danger again.
Because they actually use it as texture in the opening scene where you first meet Walter and them because Walter asks them to see if they can fix it. And Kevin Bacon's like, yeah, let's take a look at it. And Fred Ward's like, no, we have to keep the schedule. So we're not doing that. So it just seems like one of those texture moments that becomes a plot point later, which is just good writing.
It's good writing.
And they have a lot of great setups like that, like the little girl on the pogo stick. And they're like, what are you up to now? Like going for the record and stuff like and then them driving the big tractor that ends up being the refuge like later in the early on. And the movie, it's one great microcosm where there's nothing that exists within the movie that doesn't need to be there. It's a very tight, structured, gradually escalating. All the kills and the monsters and everything are all interesting and different, and they have to use their mind. They have to work together. And Kevin Bacon's flaw early on about not being able to plan and certain things is like revealed, not being able to plan ahead. And it's a really just smart and well done movie.
Well, and that scene, the girl in the pogo stick, that moment where she hits the ground and the pogo stick goes right into the ground.
Yeah,
it's that's so shocking when it happens. And you know enough about the monster at that point that you're immediately terrified for her. Like I like in that moment, I'm like, oh, little girl's gonna get eaten. That's it. She's dead.
Ron, what's the name? Ron Underwood directed this, and then and
he did City Slickers,
and then he did City Slickers. This was his first movie, though, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Then he did.
This
City
is
Slickers.
this is a pretty strong first movie.
Yeah, and then he did City Slickers hit gold, and then he had a big flop after that. What was that? I don't remember.
Well, City Slickers was a huge hit when it came out.
Oh yeah, another really smart script for a movie and stuff like that. Yeah,
so good. Such a great thing. I feel like.
Well, I mean, City Slickers had a lot of great things about it, but it had one of the best. What's his name? He plays the head guy. A shit bigger than you.
Jack Palance.
Jack
Palance has a fantastic Jack Palance performance. Yeah,
he's like a saddlebag with eyes.
He ate bacon with every meal.
You can't do that.
You can't do that.
Can I give you guys a Jack Palance Tremors bit of trivia?
Yes.
Yeah, hit us.
Jack Palance was considered for the part of Earl, but Ron was afraid to reach out to them and ask if he was interested. But he was his first choice.
Really?
Wow.
Interesting. I bet that led to him. That's a great dynamic in their relationship. Is that I loved how Earl cared enough about Val that was like trying to set him up with the smart girl, and he was saying, and clearly Val. He was saying, look, why, what you're into these girls is because Val felt like that these girls that weren't that bright or were a bit shallow, he felt safe around them. And at the end, because when he was walking to the girl before that big kiss, he's saying, she doesn't want anything like me. She's smart. She's this, she's that, she's educated. And so he saw that in him. And so that was just such a nice, moment between the two and a nice detail between the two.
Yeah. They have like this husband wife yet like father son yet brother relationship. It kind of goes all different ways because obviously Fred Ward is older than Kevin Bacon, but I'm glad Jack Palance didn't take the role because I do remember when I saw the trailer for Tremors, I was just excited that Remo Williams was in another movie. I'd never seen, because when I was a kid, we would go to the local library and rent movies, and the cover for Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins, was like him on the Statue of Liberty and stuff, looks like he was jumping on the statue or off the Statue of Liberty. I always wanted to rent that movie when I was a kid, and we finally watched it, and I was like, "Oh, this movie's great, Remo Williams, whatever." And so when I saw the preview for Tremors, I'm like, "Got to see that! It's got Remo Williams."
Remo Williams.
It's the unofficial sequel.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Reno Williams is one of those movies where I'm like, where did this come from? How did this happen? And I remember when I was a kid watching it, and it didn't. And I was always in the video store, and somehow that movie, it wasn't on my radar or whatever. It was one of those random HBO watches. And the scene when he's in the kitchen with the guy that ends up being his teacher, and he's like he's shooting at him and he's dodging him, and then he's going to punch him, and he's just moving and doing this. I thought that was like, and then him train like when in the 80s, I was a sucker for like a training with a master monk, all that stuff. Like I was in, and him training him through all this thing to become the Remo Williams, and the guy that was out in the car, like that was who knew what he was in for, and just shaking his head laughing when he just heard the smashing and banging going in there.
Yeah. I didn't realize till way after the fact that it was based on a book series, the Destroyer series, which are extremely popular. And I mean, I know they've been trying to remake them for a long time. Like I know Shane Black was trying to remake them and stuff like that. But yeah, I had no idea when I was a kid. I was just like, this is the dude who dodges bullets, and it had the cool cover with the Statue of Liberty and the guy with the Tiffany tooth. That's right.
That he uses it to cut glass.
Yeah, and it had the manager from The Natural. I was like, this has got everything I love.
Did you know, Ty, that it was book series?
I did, yeah. Yeah, when you said where did it come from, I was about to say it came from a series of books.
Did you have you read the books?
I've never read those books.
I didn't realize that until I was much, much older. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never read those books, but when the movie came out, I hung out with people who had read the books, and they were really excited. Now, apparently, if you're a book fan of The Destroyers, you don't like Remo Williams, the movie, because apparently it's very different in tone or something. All the people I knew who read the books hated that movie, but I hadn't read the books, so I loved the movies. So I don't know.
That's interesting. I'd never heard of the books.
Like before. Apparently they made it goofier, like the movie's goofier, and the books aren't quite as goofy. I don't know. I haven't read them, so I can't really say.
In the making of Tremors, Kevin Bacon was in the interview, who's actually really grown to be quite fond of this movie, and he even tried to make it into a TV series that we'll talk about later. But he said when the script came, he said, to be honest with you, I was out of money. He said, I made Footloose. He was like totally honest. He said, I made Footloose and I made just a series of flops. And, before I did Tremors, and I went back and looked at like the movies he made. These are just the movies that I know and I've seen. There's some on there that I haven't seen before, but since in between Footloose and Tremors, it was Quicksilver, Whitewater Summer, For Lemon Sky, She's Having a Baby, Criminal Law, and The Big Picture. And all of those movies, and this is just the movies that I've seen that I wrote down. I didn't write down the ones I didn't see. And it's like, Jesus Christ.
You've actually seen all of those?
Yeah, I've seen those.
So Whitewater Summer, that was a flop. That had what's her face.
That was a flop. No,
it also had our buddy David Strathairn, right?
No, that's another. He did another Whitewater movie.
Oh no, you're right. That's the River Wild.
The River Wild.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
That
of.
was after
I'm
because
the River Wild.
Then after Tremors, he had a run. Like he did Sleepers. He did A Few Good Men. He did he was doing some really great stuff. But then you see that and it's like there was some flops there. And then but when he took this movie, he tells a story that he was walking with his wife down the street and he had like a breakdown and was like, what's crying? Like, where's my career at where I'm doing a movie about these giant fucking worms that are coming to eat us? Like, what am I going to do? And then he said he showed up on set and it was the most fun he ever had making a movie. And now he said, I'm not interested in doing anything else. I'm not interested in revisiting any other movie that I've ever done except Tremors. I really think that I would love to revisit that character. I'd love to kind of do this again. And then he ended up trying to do a series on Sci-Fi. And what do you think in Sci-Fi? You got Kevin Bacon in a Tremors series, and you guys don't go forward.
There was a stretch there where Sci-Fi made some very odd choices.
I mean, they canceled us.
Yeah.
But, no, I remember reading that they were making
big mistake. Big
mistake. They were making a Tremors series, and I was just reading like, if this goes to series, I need to be on this show. Like, I don't care. Like, I'll take a pay cut. I'll do whatever it takes. Like, I need to get on this show. And I watched the trailer for it. I don't know, Wes, did you watch the trailer? Because you can watch it online. I actually tried to find the episode, but the trailer, I'm like, they do start off with Bon Jovi, Blaze of Glory. So obviously they did something right to begin it. But I didn't. Vincenzo Natali directed the pilot too, which I'm like, oh,
no
wow.
shit. Wow.
I'm in.
I mean, that
100%. How was the trailer? What did the trailer make you feel?
I thought the trailer was like not as I was more excited before I watched the trailer than after I watched the trailer. But I mean, who knows? It's just a trailer. But yeah.
What were they setting the story up at? Like, what were they picking up at?
They were picking up like he had all this glory back in the day because he was the one who saved everybody from the graboids. But now he moved back to perfection and people think he's living in the past and wanting the graboids to come back and stuff like that. And then they do, and that's what it seems like, at least from the trailer.
And what's the tone? Is the tone similar to the first one?
It seems, I mean, it almost seemed more dramatic and dark just because you couldn't really tell from the trailer, at least in my opinion. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd love to be able to check it out, but couldn't find it on the interwebs.
I think you would be the perfect choice for Tremors. And you could say I haven't thought about it, but if they came to you right now, how would you think that would work best as a series?
I can't say that now. I have no idea.
I just picture you kind of playing with that in your head a lot, thinking about it.
Oh, I mean, I play with a lot of other ideas, but not that one. And they're usually just comic and stupidly funny or stupidly ridiculous. But the one thing I did read, and I don't know if this is true or not, but the button on the end of the pilot is that Fred Ward shows up.
Yeah, that's what we Wes and I were talking about that because we couldn't remember if it was Fred Ward who showed up or Kevin Bacon who showed up at the end.
No, but Kevin Bacon's like an executive producer on it. Like he was all about making it. Like he was definitely throwing it down.
What happened to Fred Ward? I can't find a lot about him online. And there's actually an article saying what happened to Fred Ward? And the guy is like, I've been trying to find. And he's like,
you're like, Googling what happened to Fred Ward, and they're like, it comes up, what happened to Fred? Exactly.
Who's Fred Johnson? But you go and it's like, and you have, and it's, the guy's like, I can't find him. Like he just kind of disappeared. Even in these making of documentaries you go and look at of Tremors, he's the one person that's not participating. Kevin Bacon, everybody else is. I wonder what his story is or where he's at. Maybe he's training with the guy in Remo Williams. I don't know.
Maybe no, he is going to be the next. He's going to be the master in Remo Williams for the reboot. So yeah,
they're going to reboot Remo Williams.
No, I was saying that they've been talking about it for a long time. So if they ever do, they better bring Fred Ward back. I mean, that'd be like heresy if they didn't.
They could totally remake Remo Williams. I mean, all of our generation that like loved that movie growing up, like we are all in.
Yeah, no, there's like 7 of us that watched that movie and loved it. Well, it was not a successful movie.
No.
Look, there's 8 people that listen to this podcast, and now it's a worldwide phenomenon. All right?
That's 15 people.
Let's give a shout out to Victor Wong, man. It was great seeing him. I love Victor Wong, but isn't it funny? Like, how did Victor Wong get to this town? And he has the grocery store, cafe, bar. The only thing within this town, He owns that store. And
yeah.
Where does that store come from?
It's simple. It's because he's actually Egg Shen from Big Trouble in Little China. But after everything that went down, he had to change his name, get out of San Francisco.
He had to get out of town.
So where did he go? He went to Perfection, where there's nobody there, and he changed his name to Walter Chang, and he's got a store. So there's like a crossover.
Except the worms from Dune that are now have been found in Perfection.
That is also what we need to talk about. Yeah, no, this is like predating Dune, so like this is where they originated.
Tremors is the prequel to Dune.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because those are the worms that they transplant on Arrakis.
There was a lot of research done post Tremors about Perfection.
Wait, I do like the idea that he had to blow out of town after Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah.
You can't have evil wizards coming after you.
I mean, because the opening scene is him being questioned by like the cops about what's happened to Jack Burton. So obviously there's some heat on him. So he's got to get out of there.
I like the idea of Perfection Nevada actually is Arrakis. If you go into the you go years and years and years into the future, the whole world's burned itself down, and it's actually the Arrakis, and that they come on there. It's like Planet of the Apes when they go on a walk and they see the Statue of Liberty. They're actually in Perfection, Nevada.
They find Walter's store at the end. It's
like, but I was reading about Victor Wong, and one of the things that really shook me up is that because we all love Big Trouble in Little China, and the prologue when he's like, "You leave Jack Burton alone," and he does the electricity in his fingers, it's such a great thing, but it's such going into a lighthearted movie. But the story behind that is they shot the prologue after, and his son got attacked in Sacramento, California, and got killed. And they got killed before, and then right after the wake, that scene that day was scheduled, so he had to go shoot that scene. So he went and shot the scene of Big Trouble in Little China, the prologue, and he had his stroke right after shooting that scene.
Jesus.
And so it's terrible. It's really sad. And then you go back and watch that, and it's like, man, it's a whole different context, because before it's so much fun and it's introducing you to the world and everything, but now you know what he was going through at the time. But he's got a crazy story.
Yeah, that's depressing.
Hey, because we're gonna do a Big Trouble one of these. We're definitely gonna do a Big Trouble one of these. But Fred, Victor Wong had an amazing story. When he was like in the 50s, he hung out with Jack Kerouac and all the beat poets, and he was like one of the main guys that like rolled with them. It's really interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
And had a very lengthy acting career. Was in like everything.
Yeah, and he was huge in like San Francisco theater.
I had no idea. Because I know he passed away like a while ago, but yeah. Oh wow. Good for him, man. He led a life.
But I did think that the small town, like they were so entertaining. All of these people, you know, they're fully developed, but you don't know much about them. You know, it's like,
well, the movie, the script does a great job of implying everyone's backstory without ever saying it.
Yeah.
Like it feels like everybody's in perfection for a reason. And you know what, in a way, perfection kind of reminds me of from season 1, the Canterbury. Like nobody's in perfection because they want to be there. It's almost like the place where you land when everything has gone wrong. That's where you end up, except for the people who are building their house out there and get eaten by graboids. But it feels like everybody else just kind of landed there, and I like that.
Who is Melvin's parents?
You never see them.
Yeah.
Does he?
No wonder why he's such a shit.
Yeah, you don't ever see his parents. You don't know who it is. And the Family Ties dad, like I want to know, where does he come from? Where does he get all the money for all that equipment and the elephant guns and all that stuff?
Reba McEntire had a very successful music career, so they're living on that.
Reba McEntire postponed her honeymoon to do this movie.
That's dedication. That's the kind of actor you want to work with.
Yeah, the marriage didn't last
so
that long.
so this was Michael Gross's first movie after Family Ties. This was Reba McEntire's first movie ever, and there's a bunch of other. So what's the actress? What's her name? Who plays the scientist?
The seismologist.
The geologist or whatever.
Finn something. I can't remember what her last name is.
Yeah, had she done much? Because I don't remember doing much after this movie.
I know the pogo stick girl's the girl from Jurassic Park.
Oh, no shit. I did not know that, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
When I was looking back at where everybody's been doing and whatnot, I was like, oh, I had no idea.
And Melvin is played by one of those guys who was like sort of a kid character actor. He was in a lot of movies as the annoying kid.
Yeah, no, he definitely has that look and you definitely had a niche going for that for part of your childhood. Which, when Melvin first shows up, I just love that Fred Ward literally just threatens him. Like he's dribbling the basketball. He's like, "Hey, Melvin,
you touch my truck."
He's like, "Touch that truck and die."
This movie was like a massive flop. It was like Kevin Bacon was like another fucking flop. But it was a massive flop when it came out. But I think there are movies that exist like this that it makes sense to me because if the way advertisers sell a movie to you and you pay money and you go to a theater and you have an expectation and then the movie's different or offbeat than what that expectation is, there is a feeling of disappointment going through. But movies like this always work best for me when like my buddy just puts it in and we're sitting, or it's on HBO one night and you see it and you start watching it. Like with this movie, I just started watching it with no expectation and no idea where it was going to go. And then I just go along for the ride. And so many movies that I went and saw in theaters that I didn't quite hit me as well, then I see it later. And I think that this movie works really well with that because it doesn't take itself seriously. It's really playing on those 1950s monster movies, but it's very smart and very well done.
Well, and I think this is the kind of movie, that period in the sort of 80s, late 80s, this is the kind of movie that found its life on VHS.
And that's why it became a hit. Yeah.
Yeah. Because like I said, we probably rented this movie 6 times over the course of one summer. It's one of those movies that once it hit the, Blockbuster or your local video store or whatever, everybody saw it, like everybody. And there's a few movies like that came out in the 80s that really found their life on VHS. I mean, Blade Runner's one of those movies. Blade Runner didn't do any business at the theater, but it literally everyone saw it once the videotape came out.
A little fun fact about the monster is, when the dad from Family Ties is shooting it in the mouth, it's vulnerable, right? So you see it's vulnerable in the mouth. So they originally designed it where there's skin that goes over the beak. That's like kind of a protection of the mouth and the beak. And it said it looked just like an uncircumcised penis. And when it came out of the ground, the skin would disappear and it'd pop up. And Gail Ann Hurd, who's one of the producers, is like, we're not making a movie about a bunch of dicks chasing these people around.
I mean, they could have called it circumcision. That would have been, definitely.
I love the Go ahead, Ty.
Oh, I was just going to say, that's a very different movie when they're being chased through the desert by dick monsters. It's a very different movie. Like,
there's a bunch of dicks just coming out of the ground and eating people.
and somebody's there going, I knew this was going to happen. Like,
this is
my worst nightmare.
People?
Wasn't there a big throwback in James Gunn's movies, like Slithers or something, where to Tremors?
Slither. I love Slither. Yeah, I love Slither, and it has a very similar feel to
totally.
Yeah. And it's
the
really
school that the teacher in Slither works at is called Earl Bassett Community School.
Oh,
that's right.
Perfect.
Yeah. Perfect. I like it when they're holed up in Wong's store, and the thing comes out and eats him. It totally has that Jaws death where he's hanging out of the thing's mouth. He's like and it's eating him and it's doing it. And I hope people don't think I'm a bad parent, but I watched this movie with my kids. I showed it to my kids, and they loved it. They're literally watching it right now downstairs. Like, it totally, that magic still holds up. And there's I told him it wasn't real before we watched it, but look, I was raised on these movies, so they're going to watch it too. But anyway, there's movies like this. I mean, I haven't seen any of the sequels. Have you guys seen any of the sequels?
I've not seen any of the sequels. I don't want to ruin anything.
I think I saw one of them when it was on TV, and my memory is that there was I was in a hotel or something, and there was nothing on, and I wound up watching one of the sequels. I don't know which one it was, but it was fucking terrible. Yeah, it was not good.
Because there's movies like this that has magic, and there's something unique and special about it that has that magic, and it's not the idea. It's not but you can't remake that. You can't make that happen, especially without Val and Earl. And so if they were going to have Val and Earl in the sequel or in the series, then that could work. That could be really fun to watch.
Yeah, and what the sequels did is they tried to make Bert the main character. So Bert is the through character in the sequels.
Uh-huh. Isn't he hunting them or something?
Yeah, and and here's the thing: is Bert is fine as a side. Bert is great as a side character. He's the weird guy who lives in the desert with a bunch of guns with his wife, and that's okay. He's good at that. But Val, like you said, Val and Earl are the main guys, and they're the ones we love. And when you get rid of them and you try to replace them with Bert, it doesn't work. He can't carry that movie.
Tremors is Val and Earl. That's
But what's his name? Michael Gross, is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, Gross. I mean, this probably paid off a few mortgages for him, so it's a nice. Well, I guess Family Ties paid off.
He's got that Family Ties money.
He was a star of a sitcom for what? How many seasons did Family Ties go?
Well, I went to 90. I know that.
Yeah, so I'm sure Michael Gross had a few pennies saved.
Yeah. Somebody's coming in. Or somebody's not coming in. And so each death, they have to be creative to figure out, and it escalates, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you lose enough of the main characters that you really care about that now everybody seems that they're in danger. But for me, I think the most, I love the pogoing from rocks to rocks and getting in the truck and outrunning him, and I love them being trapped in the town and it's coming up underneath and it breaking into the rec room down there. That's funny, the rec room. it's just wall to wall ammo and guns. I picture that's what Ty's rec room is like on the hill in Washington.
Well, okay, it's very much like that, except it has big TVs and PlayStations.
Oh,
but that was shot so smartly because you just see them down there and the danger, and then the graboid breaks in and they're like, oh man, they're fucked, and then they pan over and reveal all the guns. So it's just they pan over. They pan over to the wall behind, and it's like that scene in The Matrix where he goes, I'm going to need guns, and just a huge rack of guns comes out of nowhere. It's like that rack is behind them. And it was right after they ran out of bullets, too, that they did the pan, so you're like, perfect.
And they're both shooting from the hip. They're taking everything. Go through the thing. And I loved how smart the worms were. They would figure things out. They were worthy when they got the tractor and they were pulling. It's like, oh, they figured out they can't bury this. So the worms go ahead and like dig tunnels that the thing falls in. But I think my favorite death scene and my favorite moment is when they tie the bombs up and they throw them out there and the thing eats it. Yeah, the fishing. Yeah, that was fun.
And then the next one spits it out back at them.
Yeah.
Right.
But like that goes to your point about the worms being smart too. Is like the first one gets blown up. The next one, like, he doesn't just get blown up too. He spits the bomb at him. Yeah.
And I like how they kind of have a rivalry with that worm when they see it at the end. Like the smart one is the one because they notice that the tongue that was ripped off under their truck and they go, look who it is, because it has the one.
Our friend Stumpy.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. So it has that, and it's smart in that way. And in the beginning they set it up because first of all it's interesting. Like they're handyman, right? And they're in perfection, but like where did they come from, and how do they know each other? How do they? And it's all implied. It's definitely there. It's really smart. And they're interesting characters. But I love how they set up that Val is unable to plan. He gets in the moment. He says, "Yeah, why do I want to spend time planning? And we like to plan and not do shit in the moment." And so how he overcomes this is he comes up with a plan to run to the cliff, and then they do the last lighter bit as
the lighter, yeah.
That was probably
which is the first bit that they do. Yeah.
Now I got to ask. So we're talking about this movie as like a Western. Have you guys seen the actual Western that is a sort of half ripoff of Tremors, where it's actual cowboys out in the desert in the Old West, and there's underground monsters coming after them, and it is not goofy at all. It's played as a straight horror movie. It basically uses the plot of Tremors or the monsters from Tremors, but plays it as a straight horror movie in the Old West. What's the name of that movie? Clint, what's the name of that movie?
But do they have the same rules? Do they have the same rules as those worms?
I think they pretty much do, because it's underground worms that are killing these people in the Old West, and this group of cowboys winds up.
That's the Scarlet Letter version of the Tremors crossover.
Are you referring to Tremors 4: The Legend Begins?
No.
Strike two. Jesus Christ.
Well, speaking of Tremors as a Western, it was filmed in Lone Pine, California, where a lot of Westerns were filmed. It is the home of the Museum of Western Film History, which has a permanent Tremors exhibit, which anyone can visit. It has a full-size graboid head and a scale model of Chang's Market.
Clint, you know how trivia works, right? You ask us trivia questions.
Oh, it's called The Burrowers. The movie is called The Burrowers. Yep.
Hey,
Dan, it came out.
I'd ask the questions if I thought you knew, Wes. I swear I would ask.
It came out in 2008.
Try me.
Lone Pine's the like the last stop or one of the last stops when you're going up to Mammoth to like get gas and get food and all that. Because I've actually stopped in Lone Pine, but I did not know Tremors was filmed there, which actually upsets me now.
Dan,
I've been to Lone Pine multiple times. There was a period when my parents were considering moving to Lone Pine.
Really?
They're strange people. And my sister briefly dated a guy from Lone Pine.
Oh, wow.
So I have many connections to Lone Pine.
Wouldn't it be hilarious, like if you go back and watch it and you see like Ty and his family just walking in the background, like going, they're one of the people shopping at Victor Wong's shop over there, just like random, like young Ty there, and it's like, wait a minute, you were there. This would be a lot cooler podcast.
Ty's dad was the religious consultant on Tremors. We just don't know about
that. On Tremors.
This would be a lot cooler of a podcast if you actually lived there, so you could like tell us about it and like, oh yeah, I lived there for a while.
No, I've been there a couple times, but thank God I never lived there, because I remember when my parents were like talking about maybe moving out there, and we went out there a couple of times, and I was just like, if they move out here, I need to find a way to run away and live on the street.
There's only like one street in Lone Pine, so you'd have to get out of there.
No, I would be running away and living on the streets in L.A.
You mean living on the street?
Yeah, on that one street.
On that one street.
Such a rebel.
We know where that street is.
Yeah, my parents can see me from the house, but I'm such a rebel.
Ty's like, we got mountains to the east, we got mountains to the west, we got a gorge in the back. There's only one way out. I'm going to Bisbee. Dan, what was your theory about the worms? I heard you. We've talked about this before, but I forgot. You were saying that, or maybe that's what the theories was. That this was Arrakis.
It was the Dune joking. Yeah, when I was watching
or
the new
Star
Dune
Wars.
movie. Well, the Sarlacc is totally, or not the. Excuse me, the Sarlacc is obviously comes from Dune, so this is all just part of the same worm eating its own tail. So there you go.
Yeah.
Well, I like to think of it as the perfection cinematic universe.
Yes,
it's all connected.
There you go.
Yeah,
it is all connected. Yes, the Bene Gesserit only exists because of Perfection, Nevada. So,
yep.
who's the representative of the Bene Gesserit in
Reba McEntire
in the movie? Reba
McEntire.
Yeah, she's the most badass. Yeah. I was gonna say Fred Ward, but
well,
she has the weirding way, but it's a 12 gauge shotgun.
The weirding way is just a gun. Yeah.
she is like the precursor to the Bene Gesserit. She from her lineage, when the Earth turns into Arrakis, Reba McEntire is the original Bene Gesserit.
She started.
I was saying it was Fred Ward because only after he was so badass they realized, like, man, we just need women now. We can't do like no one could be this awesome. We need
no. Fred Ward started the Fremen.
That's probably true. Yeah.
Fred. Yeah, the Fremen come from his loins. That is from his genealogy. The original ending. Val and Earl, once it's all over, they say goodbye, load up, and they drive to Bisbee. And it ends with them leaving. And the test audience were so disappointed because Val was supposed to kiss the girl or get the girl that they went back and reshot the ending where they kiss at the end.
I think I would have preferred the other ending. I think I would have preferred the one where they just get in the truck and go to Bisbee.
Oh, but they set up, because Earl's like, look, you got to change you got to aim a little higher. You got to change your taste. And like, these girls are so stupid. Oh, I broke a nail. You remember he was making fun of him? Yeah. But you see that Val doesn't think he's worthy of that. And so at the end, that was him kind of coming to that realization, like, taking that leap.
So I like movies where people don't learn anything. I like movies where they get to the end of the movie and they're exactly the same fuck up they were at the beginning of the movie. So I know I'm weird in that way. But
like Jack Burton, aren't you even going to kiss her goodbye? Nope. He just leaves.
Yeah. That's part of the reason why I love Big Trouble in Little China so much, is because Jack Burton thinks he's the hero of the story and isn't. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Fails all the way through the whole movie, gets to the end, thinks he's the one who won the day, and then doesn't kiss the girl and just takes off and gets back in his truck. I love how he never gets anything right, and he never learns anything, and he has no character growth. That makes him one of my favorite characters ever.
Yeah. No.
But it wasn't his movie. Do you know an example of a movie where it is the main protagonist and they don't learn or they don't grow?
Yeah, Ferris Bueller.
You don't think Jack Burton is the protagonist or the main guy of that movie? He thinks he is.
He thinks he is. That's what's
No, but that's the thing. But
most of the humor comes from him thinking he's the star of the movie and having no idea that he's not the star of the movie. Like, he doesn't know that he's the sidekick.
But he doesn't change. Like, the first thing he wants, the only reason he sticks around is to get his money. And at the end, he gets his money, and then he leaves.
But I'm asking, like, where there is the main protagonist and they don't learn or they don't grow at the end, and they take their money at the end.
There's been essays written about, like, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Like, the main protagonist is really Cameron. I mean, because he's the one who actually has an arc. Ferris does not have an arc.
Yeah. I'd love to read those essays. But that's the thing, is like, there are great characters like that aren't the main protagonists, that don't have that dramatic question that's pulling the movie forward. Like, Cameron is the one that's changed. His emotional arc is like the engine of the movie. And so I'm curious if there's been a satisfying movie where that main protagonist, at the end, he just takes his money and doesn't kiss the girl.
I think in every case like that, you have a Cameron. I think the movies where it works, where the main character, what the ostensible main character doesn't ever change or learn anything or have an arc, there's always some other character that does. Like, the guy gets to marry the girl in Big Trouble, right? The guy who was looking for his bride who gets kidnapped, he gets the girl. at the end. So he's got the arc. He's got the character growth and all this stuff. Jack Burton doesn't. In Ferris Bueller, he's got Cameron. I think the movies where it works uses that. Where the main guy kind of cluelessly goes through the movie and doesn't realize that, the person who's actually changing and having a character arc is their buddy or their sidekick.
Yeah, and so that was kind of my point, is that I think that it works, but somebody's changing. And so my curiosity was, has there ever been a movie where that main protagonist at the end, where you kind of so wrapped up in his story and where he's going at the end, and he's like, nope, and takes the money and leaves.
You could argue like Daniel Plainview in There Will Be Blood doesn't change. I mean, he has some moments, but in the end, he's just a son of a bitch killer. I mean, he realizes some things, and he kind of like, but I'm only doing this out of because this will help me get what I want. I'm only going to act like I'm changing. In the end, he's still the same person. He's even more horrible.
But yeah, I mean, that is his change. He comes from a terrible person to a completely, totally horrible person. And so like that
so his arc is actually like a dip.
It's literally a descent into madness. It's literally a descent into madness where he's God, that's a great movie, and that's a great example. But he does have this descent into madness, and at the end, when he's like beating what's his name with a bowling pin, he has severed his last strip to humanity in there. I'll drink your milkshake. All right, so I thought it'd be fun to do our top 5 horror comedies of all time.
I don't have a ton of horror comedies.
I know. I mean, there's the obvious ones, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Tremors is an obvious one. Shaun of the Dead is an obvious one.
Yeah.
I really like. Not everybody loved it, but I really liked This Is the End. The Seth Rogen, James Franck.
Oh yeah, I didn't mind that.
Yeah, after the Rapture.
I
movie.
laughed my ass off that movie.
Right?
Yeah.
And the reason it's so funny is because of Danny McBride.
Right.
Well, and Michael Cera's hilarious at the beginning.
Yeah, at the beginning. Yeah, Michael Cera's pretty funny at the beginning.
You want to sip my Slurpee? I wrote down a few. Army of Darkness, Ghostbusters,
great.
Gremlins, Beetlejuice, The Reanimator, Monster Squad, Return of the Living Dead, Zombieland, Dead Alive.
Oh yeah.
I do like Zombieland a lot.
Shaun of the Dead, Night of the Comet, What We Do in the Shadows, Cabin in the Woods, This Is the End, which you talked about, Clue, Sleepaway Camp, Fright Night, Young Frankenstein, and my favorite of all time is American Werewolf in London.
No?
Yeah.
I have one for you that's not on there, and it's the Blob from like the mid '80s with Kevin.
Oh, I
Dillon.
love that Blob with Kevin Dillon. Yeah, and
Dillon,
what's her face?
The girl I just know her as the girl from Who's Harry Crumb. There's another deep cut for everybody. Who's Harry Crumb?
She's also the girl from the Saw sequels.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Frank Darabont wrote that movie, which is just blows my mind. But there's to me, like my brother and I always joke about this line. It's where they're in it's basically like the meta part where you see people at a drive-in watching a movie, like a horror movie. And the people in the movie, they're like guy and a girl making out, and the killer has got like a Jason face mask and a chainsaw, and he's like just like down the street, and he's like pulling it, and the guy looks, and he's like, "That's not right. Hockey season ended months ago." I always remember that line from the that just killed me. I was like, "Oh my god, that's fucking hilarious."
Dan, tell me about this movie. I haven't seen it. I never even. You
never watched The Blob?
Oh, it's just The Blob. It's a remake of like the '50s one, from the mid '80s. Yeah,
with Kevin Dillon.
I don't even know. Kevin Dillon's the star. Yeah,
yeah. It was in the '80s. Yeah, Kevin Dillon was a star. And it follows pretty much the exact same plot as the '50s Blob.
Yeah,
it's just funnier.
There's some random funny shit like that. I just remember, when I was rewatching that, I was like, oh my god, that's hilarious.
Yeah, no, that one is worth watching. That's I've seen it a couple of times, and it always makes me laugh.
Werewolf in London. That's one that we could do a whole podcast on, but that is another one. Like, there's magic in that movie. There's a tone. There's a comedic tone. And there's I'll change my battery, but there's like a haunting, kind of strange, humorous tone in there, and it just works. And everything about it just works. It's such a great movie. For me, Zombieland would just be an average movie, but Bill Murray's cameo in that movie just kills me. I love Bill Murray.
Well, Bill Murray's cameo is amazing, but I also really, really, really love Woody Harrelson.
Yeah.
And Woody Harrelson is, by
Fun
far
fact,
the best thing, other than the Bill Murray cameo.
Fun fact about the Bill Murray cameo, because back in another lifetime, I worked over at Sony when we were making Zombieland, and originally it was supposed to be McConaughey as the Bill Murray character, but I don't know whether it was timing or money or whatever, but they couldn't, originally it was Matthew McConaughey that's supposed to be the Bill Murray character.
I actually do know something about this.
Oh, go ahead, Clint.
In the original script, it was Patrick Swayze, but Patrick Swayze was dying of cancer at the time, so it was considered to be in poor taste. They were already filming. They asked Woody Harrelson to ask Matthew McConaughey to do it. McConaughey said yes. In the script, they had him as a shirtless, bongoing zombie, so then he dropped out. Then they cast Bill Murray, and Bill Murray arrived as a late addition. Originally, he was meant to be a zombie who didn't speak. Bill Murray insisted that he speak, and everything Bill Murray says in the movie was mostly come up with by him on set.
Wow. And it just works. Sense. It just works. The Bill Murray stuff in that movie is magical.
Ty, you're a Reanimator guy, right?
That director made a number of different sort of Cthulhu mythos horror movies, and I have great affection for all of them. I'm unabashedly a fan of Cthulhu B movies, and Reanimator was not Cthulhu, but it was based loosely on a Lovecraft story. I wouldn't put it in my top 5 though. I would not put Reanimator in my top 5.
What about Cabin in the Woods?
When I first saw Cabin in the Woods, I loved it. I love it less with every rewatch. I'm starting to see the cracks every time I rewatch it. But the first time I watched it, I thought it was fucking brilliant.
I love that. Like speaking of chemistry between characters, between Richard Jenkins and Bradley Whitford, that to me was just what was made Cabin in the Woods. Yeah. You guys liked it more than I did, but those two guys were amazing.
They were very funny. Yeah.
I had a reverse journey of Cabin in the Woods. When I first saw it, it was kind of, and then I saw it again, and then I saw it again, and then I just started being like, oh, okay, I get it. But I was not like a massive Cabin in the Woods fan.
My first viewing of it took me by surprise, and I really liked it.
What about What We Do in the Shadows?
That is a lovely, lovely movie. It is just so every time Taika Waititi makes a movie, it's like a big warm hug of a movie. Like he can't make something without making it just a big warm hug. I got to think either he's a serial killer or he's the nicest person who's ever lived. That's the only two choices. He can't just be a regular guy, because nobody who's a regular guy makes big warm hug movies over and over and over again.
He made a big warm hug movie where he starred as Hitler.
Right?
Jesus, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and by the way, that is a fact, because Jojo Rabbit is, one, hilarious, also heartbreaking. He plays Hitler in it.
Yeah.
And it's still a big warm hug of a movie.
Yes.
I mean, it's a movie in which Scarlett Johansson gets hung.
Which that shot is so brilliant.
Heartbreaking.
Like, I remember when I first watched that, I was like, oh man. The fact that you're even like, Sam Rockwell has a character turn and he's a Nazi, and you like him at the end.
Yeah. No, and Taika Waititi's a special filmmaker.
He is a genius when it comes to tone. Especially that movie. Like, I mean, talk about threading the needle and dealing with that thing, but also dipping into like this traumatic experience with this kid and his mother getting hung, but like this beautiful, hilarious, funny moments, like Hitler getting pissy, certain things. It's like really just genius of a movie.
I'm very impressed by him for a number of reasons, but one, because the balls on that guy to make that movie, because you got to know every single other person involved in that was scared to death.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I don't know if I'm correct on this, but like the Hitler in his mind was not a part of the book. I think that was added by him, which
really?
I don't quote me on that. I believe I read that somewhere. If that's completely wrong, then I'm completely wrong. But I thought I read that somewhere where I'm like, man, I mean, because it added obviously just the mental state of the kid, and you make him hilarious. It just makes the kid even more sympathetic, which is hard to do when you're like, well, we have our protagonist is part of the Hitler Youth. Oh, interesting. Tell me more about this.
Yeah. His best friend is an imaginary Hitler that follows him around and gives him life advice. I mean, like, just the balls on that guy to make that movie. And not just the fact that he made it, because a lot of people have made unfortunate movie choices, but to make it and also have it work. Just I can't even imagine the size of that guy's balls. He must need like a separate car to drive them around.
Did you see his first movie, Boy?
I've not.
Way a million years ago.
Oh, Dan, you would really. It's his very first movie. They did it with a nothing budget, New Zealand, all local cast, all local people, and you can definitely see his skill and his talent early on coming through. And it's like his dad's in a biker gang, and it does that thing too, where it's like it threads that needle of like. Or he's an uncle, right? He's the boy's uncle, and he's like in this. They call themselves the Sharks or something like that. And then but he does terrible things, but he's so likable and funny in this whole. It's really well done. It's very smart and
it's just called Boy.
Boy, it's just called Boy. So it's his very first movie,
and he still made my favorite Marvel movie. So,
Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
I'd like to nominate Shaun of the Dead because Shaun of the Dead is a genuinely good zombie movie, scary zombie movie at times, but also hilarious. And for me...
And heartbreaking at times.
And heartbreaking and truly touching and moving at times. And for me, horror comedies are either all the way scary or all the way... to strike that balance like Werewolf in London, where it is genuinely funny, but then really horrifying in certain things. But, Shaun of the Dead is just a really skillfully well done movie. When they're walking on the path and they meet like their doppelgangers, and it's like it's just like people that are having the same type of adventure on another path in like a parallel universe. It's just so smart.
Well, and those guys made a TV show called what's the name of that? Spaced. Thank you. Spaced, where the main character from Shaun of the Dead is roommates with the girl that he runs into on the path. They're roommates. And so that moment where they run into each other, it's sort of like a reference back to that show where it's like, oh, what have you been up to? Oh, and they're just like, they're having a moment. Like it's those two characters from Spaced running into each other in the middle of the zombie apocalypse. So it's a great scene anyway. But if you've watched Spaced, it's like got this whole other level of subtext to it.
Oh, wow.
Edgar Wright and the lead of the movie, they met on that TV show that you're just talking about. What's his name? The lead guy and his buddy
Simon Pegg.
Simon Pegg. And they met on that TV show and they started talking and they kind of bonded over movies they love. They love zombie movies and they love horror movies and comedy and stuff like that. And then they ended up starting doing things. So I guess the thing is what are we going to come up with in the future?
Nothing.
Here's
the problem.
I guess you have to have real talent.
The problem that we have is we have a stunning lack of talent, which would be okay, except that we also have a complete lack of ambition. Yeah. And I think that combination of things, the lack of talent and lack of ambition, is really going to hurt our chances.
Yeah, I mean, look, lack of talent and lack of voice and drive, that, there are people all over Hollywood that have that, but we have that's different is we are lazy.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the nail in our coffin.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say what we have is a podcast.
This podcast isn't even run well.
No, it's a mess. It's a mess. Yeah,
this podcast is essentially a bar in Toronto where we go and sit and talk, do the same shit we do. And then,
to your point about laziness, like Shaun of the Dead, like one of the best lines is where they're getting drunk and Nick Frost is like, do you know what we should do tomorrow? Keep drinking.
And that movie also introduced us all to Nick Frost. I mean, he's in Spaced, but he's not like a main character. That movie gave us Nick Frost, and thank God for that.
All trying to be quiet and sneak into the Winchester bar, they're acting like zombies. He picks up his phone because somebody's calling him for weed. He actually picks up the call. And he's like, "No, man, I don't got any." Like The fact that somebody's actually looking for weed in the zombie apocalypse, and then he's like, "Yeah,
during the apocalypse."
yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, trust me, people would be looking for weed.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
You're
Come
right.
on.
All right, Werewolf of London, Ghostbusters. Oh, we haven't talked about Ghostbusters yet.
Yeah,
That's one we can do a whole podcast on.
We've talked about Ghostbusters before, but it is like Tremors, one of the few perfect movies.
Right.
Yeah.
What We Do in the Shadows. Oh, by the way, has anybody seen the Ghostbusters reboot?
I haven't.
No.
Yeah, I really want to. I'm going to take my kids to see it. They love Ghostbusters. So, American Werewolf, Ghostbusters, What We Do in the Shadows, Shaun of the Dead, and what's number 5? Beetlejuice?
I'm not a huge Beetlejuice fan.
All right.
That movie leaves me cold.
This Is the End?
I do love This Is the End. I don't know if it deserves to be in the top 5. It's very hit and miss.
I put the Blob on there just for that line.
I think that Michael Keaton. I'm just such a Michael Keaton fan, and he's just crushing it in Beetlejuice. Like, he makes me laugh out loud. I understand what you're saying. I get your point about the movie. There's a lot of things that aren't interesting in it, but his character, when he's on a roll, save that one for later. He just like goes through just like his comedy shit. He just kills me.
Michael Keaton's a genius, so yeah, it's hard to go wrong with him.
I watched Night Shift recently, and
oh man, that's priceless.
I forgot how funny he is in that movie. It just crushes it. He's hilarious in that.
I just love the fact that they got Henry Winkler plays the straight man. I mean, this is the Fonz. Like, you know what? I'm gonna be the straight man in this.
That's closer to who Henry Winkler is.
No, yeah,
in that,
totally, yeah.
And so, it's literally Ron Howard getting Winkler to do him a favor, coming out of their TV show and doing this movie Night Shift, and Michael Keaton makes that movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
By the way, the actor who plays the female lead in The Blob is Shawnee Smith.
That's right.
I had to look her up. She had a string of
Harry
movies
Crumb.
there where she seemed like she was going to be a big star.
Harry Crumb?
Remember renting that at the video store.
Was that his last movie? John Candy's last movie?
No, that was earlier in his career. That was like before Uncle Buck, I think.
No, it was after Uncle Buck, because this was like a straight to HBO. Yeah, this is like a straight to HBO kind of thing. Like, this was after Canadian Bacon. This was after all these movies. I wonder if that was the funniest scene in that movie is when he gets his pants wet and he's turning around and he's drying it off, and she walks out and it looks like he's jerking off on the porch, and he's trying to dry his pants off, and she goes, "Oh!" She shuts the door.
Oh my god,
Joseph, would it be possible to do it? Would it be possible to do a clip of that of Candy jerking off on the door? That's hilarious.
By the way, Ty, Wagons East was Candy's last movie.
That's right. Wagons East. I remember that. Not a good movie.
But don't have him jerking off on my face, all right? Because I know you have a thing about that. I
don't know. What should be the fifth one?
Can I give some other suggestions?
I'll go through the thing.
Wait, hold on. Go ahead. Hey, Joseph, go ahead and give us the recent ones.
Better Watch Out, Freaky, Ready or Not, and one oldie that I love, Critters.
Yeah, I didn't love Better Watch Out, but Ready or Not is good, and the other one that's good. Have you guys seen The Babysitter? Yeah, The Babysitter is pretty great, and it's got an actor who I have become a huge fan of. She's doing tons of genre stuff now. It's Agent Smith's niece. What is her name?
Samara Weaving.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Samara. Yeah. She's great, and The Babysitter was a star-making turn for her, as far as I'm concerned.
Tell me about
she was fantastic. So it is a kid who he has the super hot babysitter that like is coming over to take care of him one night, and then he starts to suspect that she is a witch and she is going to use his blood in a ritual. And her friends show up, and they're all going to be part of the ritual, and so it's that. But she's great in it, and it's actually quite funny. The kid is really good, and has some interesting turns. Samara Weaving is her name.
Yeah, she was,
and she's done a bunch of stuff recently. She also just did a Netflix movie.
Yes,
with the guy from Walking Dead, whose name just slipped out of my head, where they have to get out of a building that's been infected with like the rage virus, where everybody's killing each other in the building. And I don't remember the name of that movie, but I actually really liked her in it.
She did a Netflix series.
Are we just going to let Joseph say Critters over Gremlins?
No, Gremlins is way better than Critters.
Yeah. Gremlins is
well, not in the pool, and should be. There's Evil Dead 2.
Yeah,
it is in the pool. It is in the pool.
You said Army of Darkness. I didn't think you said Evil Dead 2.
Oh, what I should have said is all of those except the first Evil Dead. So you're right, Clint. I stand corrected.
Yeah. The first Evil Dead plays it much straighter.
Oh, what about Bubba Hotep?
Then make it funnier. You know what? I enjoyed the shit out of Bubba Hotep. I saw that.
I love Bubba Hotep.
I saw that. So there's a theater that I used to live next to when I lived in Laurelhurst in Portland, called the Laurelhurst Theater. It was like a block from my house, and it was one of the theaters in Portland where you can get a beer, and they also had pizza. So I on Friday night, if I had nothing else going on, I'd walk down to the Laurelhurst. I'd get a couple slices of pizza and a pitcher of beer. And I'd just watch one of the
story.
4 movies they had.
This is good, yeah.
Yeah, I'd watch one of the 4 movies they'd had going. And one night, Bubba Hotep was there, and I had seen nothing about it. And I was like, oh, hey, it's got Bruce Campbell. I'll check that out. Got my pizza, got my pitcher of beer, sat down, watched Bubba Hotep, and had a great fucking time. Maybe drinking a whole pitcher of beer by myself contributed to that. I don't know. But I had a great fucking time watching that movie.
Oh, sorry. I thought this was your story time where you went to that place, the same place. You got, I don't know what movie it was, but you got your pitcher of beer, your 2 slices of pizza. You sit down to watch the movie, and all the power went out.
Yeah.
And so you just bought all this.
No, it wasn't the power. It was in the middle of a big rainstorm. They had a massive leak open up in their ceiling, and water started pouring into the theater. So they closed it for safety reasons.
But the best part is they gave you like since you just bought a pitcher of beer, they gave you a big gulp cup to put your pitcher of beer in to leave with.
They did. I was like,
here's your pitcher to go. Yeah.
They were like, you have to leave because we've got this leak. I said, I just bought a pitcher of beer. And so they gave me like the 48-ounce big gulp cup.
Big gulps, huh?
I put my whole pitcher of beer in this cup. So I'm walking back from the theater in the pouring rain back to my house. I got 2 slices of pizza. I'm trying to keep from getting soggy in the holding them in a paper plate, and I've got a big gulp of beer, and I stuck a straw in it, and I was just drinking my beer through a straw as I walked back. Yeah, that's right. I told Dad about that. I went to that theater all the time. I loved that theater.
Was Bubba Hotep? Was that a retrospective, or did you watch it when it came out?
I watched it when it came out.
Oh yeah.
Does it came out in like 2004, 5?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, no, it was. So they had the way Laurelhurst worked was like they had second run movies, they had indie films, like smaller budget indie films, and then occasionally they'd have like a classic film they'd put on one screen. Like they'd have like one Friday they'd have Scarface or something like that. So you never knew what you were going to get. It was always a really eclectic mix, and it was 4 screens. So if you went there was always going to be something interesting. And that day just happened to be when they were showing Bubba Hotep. And yeah, had a great time with it. Well, I don't know what I'd stick as number 5. I mean, many of these are good choices. Many of these are good choices. Who's the 4 that are on the list right now?
Since Dan is our guest, we'll let him choose number 5.
Well, so who's the 4 that are on the list?
The American Werewolf in London, Ghostbusters, What We Do in the Shadows, and Shaun of the Dead.
Why isn't Tremors on there, dude?
No, Tremors has the 0 slot.
That's the zero slot. So we just did.
Yeah. Tremors is the reason the list exists.
I would put Gremlins on there only because it's hilarious that the dad wanted to surprise his kids by going down the chimney, because that is damn funny.
and when she's telling that story and she's crying,
I'm like, what the hell? Like, have you ever seen a chimney? It's called just gravity. Like, it's gonna fall.
Yeah.
That kind of threw me for a loop, because I was a big Gremlins fan, and going and seeing that, I'm like, what the fuck are they doing? What is this shit?
Yeah.
Yeah, she tells the story about her dad, delivering presents, and he went down the chimney, and then they smelt him. All right, the dad was missing for months, and then it wasn't until the smell covered the thing. Yeah. BB Cates, man.
BB Cates. Yeah.
BB Cates. Yeah. Thank you guys for hanging out. This was our Tremors special. We've been talking about doing it. We did it. I hope it lived up to your expectations. Come hang out again.
I hope it failed all of your expectations.
I'm pretty sure it did.
Mine were definitely not met. So thank you guys for thank you for having me on. Never a pleasure. Good seeing you guys.
Wasting your night. Yeah.
Yeah.
Say goodbye, Ty.
Hold on. Goodbye, Ty.